Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and to this week's video. Today we're talking all about pens. As you can see, I've got a variety of pens in front of me. I figured I would go through each kind of pen, talk about their advantages, their disadvantages, why I like them, and even point out some of the pens that I use most frequently in my own artwork. So let's get started with this Pilot G2. This is just a regular ballpoint rollerball pen. It's technically a gel pen because it does use gel ink, but it does have a rollerball at the end of it as well, so I guess it's technically also a rollerball pen. But these pens are great just because, first off, most people have some version of this pen somewhere in their house right now. It's usually an everyday pen that you would use, so it's good to get started using ink instead of pencil. These pens are also really good because they glide fairly smoothly on paper. They usually give you a consistent line, and you can even get some line variation. If you press a little bit lighter on the pen, you'll usually get lighter, fainter lines that can be great for shading. I've seen a lot of artists use nothing but a rollerball pen or a ballpoint pen to create really incredible pieces of art. So don't sleep on these pens just because you think that, you know, they're not your traditional art supply or, you know, an art pen. But these are really great to get started, and even as you get better, to just keep using. The only downside to these is that most ballpoint and rollerball pens, not all of them, but most of them are not going to be waterproof. So if you're planning on watercoloring or something like that, the ink is going to run and smudge. So I wouldn't use these if you're going to be doing that. But other than that, these are really great to get started. Now, moving on to fine liners. In front of me, I've got 3 Staatlers in different sizes. I have a 0.1, a 0.5, and a 0.3. The good thing about fine liners is, again, a lot like the rollerball or ballpoint pens. They'll usually get a consistent line, and that's because they generally have like a felt tip. The bad thing about that is you're probably not going to be able to play around too much with the line weight. You can always make them a little bit thinner just by pressing a little bit lighter, and that'll give you a thinner line. But in terms of getting a thicker line, generally you're probably just going to have to go over the line that you put down in order to make it a little bit thicker. But you can also buy these in packs of like 3 or 5 or 8 or something like that. And that gives you a wide range of different sizes, generally somewhere from like a 0.25 all the way up to like a 2 or a 5 millimeter, which will give you a very thin line to a very thick line. I generally stick with like the 0.1, the 0.3, and the 0.5. But again, if you want to go a little bit thicker, that is an option. These pens, again, also like the rollerball ballpoint pens, they're usually single use. You typically can't refill these or anything. Although I do know, I think Copic fine liners, I think you can usually buy ink refills for them. So you could just buy like the ink cartridge and refill the pen. But then eventually the nib, because it is a felt tip nib, the nib is also going to run out, which I think Copic also makes a replacement for. I'm not sure about the nib. I know they have the replacement ink cartridges. I'm not sure about the nib, but for most of these fine liners, the nib is probably going to wear out eventually, which means you're going to have to get a new pen. That's the downside to these pens. Another fine liner that I've actually come across that I didn't know they made is the Micron PN. So I'm familiar with the regular Micron pens, but I didn't know they made like a PN brand, which stands for plastic nib. And as you can see, it has a plastic nib. The advantage to that, though, I've only been using these pens for a few weeks, but for the plastic nib, I've noticed that you usually get like a skip-free line. I've noticed like the lines don't skip as much when I'm drawing. I usually get fairly consistent ink flow. And you also get the benefit of, because it is a plastic nib, you can kind of press on it a little bit harder to get a bit of a thicker line. So that's good. And fine liners also, the Staatlers included, they're usually archival ink or pigmented ink, which means that they're generally waterproof. So with these, you're good to draw and watercolor over them. So if that's something, again, that you're interested in potentially doing, like watercoloring your drawings or something, I would definitely make sure to get pens that are that use pigment ink, archival ink, just to make sure that when you apply your watercolor, your line work isn't going to bleed and, you know, and mix with your watercolors and kind of make everything all muddy. This next pen that I use, again, is just another gel pen by Pilot. This is the High-Tech C. I recently learned about this pen as well from watching another YouTube video, and I've been liking these a lot because, as you can see, again, it is a gel pen and it's got a very fine point. It says it's a 0.3 on the cap, but I've actually compared this to my 0.3 Staedtler, and the lines are different sizes. The Staedtler, the 0.3 in the Staedtler is a little bit bigger. And so then I've actually also compared this to the 0.01 Staedtler, and this line is still a bit thinner. So I think this is more likely a 0.05 millimeter. And again, I'll show you the comparison between these two. And so I've been using this pen a lot to kind of finish off drawings and provide details, like little cracks in buildings and things like that. Again, it's not waterproof ink, so if you are watercoloring a drawing, be sure that the watercolor dries completely and that you're not going to apply like another layer of watercolor, because again, this ink is not waterproof, so it'll start to run and bleed. But it's been really great to add details and kind of just make my drawings pop a little bit more and just look a lot better. So I've been using this pen to apply those details, and it's been great. The next set of pens we have are, I have a Sailor pen and a TWSBI. Both of these are fountain pens. They're a little different. So the TWSBI Diamond 580, which is this pen that I have here, is just a standard like fountain pen with a nib. I believe this is a medium nib. And the good thing about the fountain pens that I really like is you can generally refill them. Now the TWSBI doesn't take a cartridge or anything, it just fills right into the body. But a lot of fountain pens, like this Sailor fountain pen, you can actually buy a cartridge that will allow you to refill it, like a converter that you can refill instead of just buying a new pen or like replacement cartridges. Now this Sailor pen also has a Fude nib, which is this nib here that's got like that little bend in it, and that actually gives you really interesting line weights, because the more vertical you use it, the thinner line that you get, and then as you tilt it back, you get a thicker line. So you can vary your line weight just by changing the angle of the pen as you're drawing, which is really fun to use and provides a lot of interest and character into sketches. And here's the converter that I mentioned. So when you buy this pen, it comes with like a cartridge, like an ink cartridge, but you can buy like these Sailor pen converters that allows you to fill it up with any ink that you want, which is why it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy fountain pens, because I mean, it's more economical and, you know, more environmentally friendly, because you're not replacing the pens or always buying ink cartridges whenever you run out. So I really enjoy that. And I just enjoy fountain pens because you generally get, I feel like the lines that you get from a fountain pen have more character than with like a fine liner or, you know, a rollerball pen or something like that. I just feel like because of the nibs and the way that you apply pressure with the pen, you just naturally get more lively lines, which I really enjoy. So that's why I generally use fountain pens for a lot of my drawings. And they're just a lot of fun to use. And fountain pens can get really expensive. These two are relatively cheap. I think the TWSBI Diamond 580 was about $60. This Sailor pen with the Fude nib I think is less than $15 or about $15. So yeah, I really enjoy fountain pens. And again, if you want to apply watercolor or anything like that, just make sure you get like archival ink. And it's also great because you can just use whatever ink that you want instead of having to worry about, you know, using the ink that came with the pen or whatever. This next pen is another pen by Pilot. It's a Pilot parallel pen. This pen takes a while to get used to. As you can see, it's got an interesting nib. So it's actually two metal plates. I don't know if you can see that. There are actually two little metal plates and the ink runs between them. This is generally used for calligraphy because you'll usually get broad strokes when you're using the pen with the nib flat like that. And then if you turn it on its side and use the corner, that's when you usually get like thinner lines. I generally use this pen for like buildings just because I can get like those broad strokes and then quickly switch to like a thinner line using the corner to do like little window details or something like that. This is another pen that you can actually replace the cartridge. So this is actually the cartridge it came with right here. And then I have the replacement right here. It's just this little converter that once I'm done with this cartridge, I can pop in the converter, use it with whatever ink I want, and I'm good to go. And this ink, again, is not waterproof. So when I do use this pen, I generally don't use watercolor with it. But this is a really fun pen just to get some interesting line widths and variations, and it's generally like it's a fun pen to use. It does have a bit of a learning curve. It's kind of weird, but once you get the hang of it, I mean, I'm still getting used to it, but it's super fun. The last pen I have is just a Pentel Pocket brush pen, and again, this is just a pen that's got like a brush tip, so kind of like a paintbrush, and this gives you a lot of great options. So you can get a very thick line, a very thin line. You can also use it very quickly to kind of get like some interesting textures in your drawings, and it allows for, I mean, virtually an unlimited range of line widths. This is also another pen that you can get ink cartridges for. I don't believe they make converters for this one, so this one you kind of just have to get replacement cartridges as you run out of ink. But I really enjoy these brush pens to get like some final inking done. Again, if I'm doing something in pencil and I want to ink it, I'll sometimes use a brush pen. A lot of times I just draw straight with a brush pen and kind of have fun with it. It does get, again, it's another one of those pens that takes a while to get used to, just because especially if you're someone who may not paint a lot, or you're just not used to using a brush tip, it can get kind of challenging. But I found that even when you make a mistake with a brush pen, I feel like it still looks really cool. So I really enjoy the brush pen a lot. And I mean, yeah, the pens that I use the most, I'll generally use like the fountain pens, a brush pen, the fine liners, and lately, again, like I said, I've been using this Pilot High-Tech C to kind of do some detail work. Those are usually the ones I've been using a lot. I also the Micron PNs as well, but I mean, again, I count these as kind of like fine liners too, just with a different type of nib. And those are the pens that I use the most in my drawings, and I really enjoy them. I'm trying to get better with the parallel pen, so this will probably quickly make its way into the rotation. I don't generally use rollerball pens all that much, or ballpoint pens, again, mainly because the ink isn't waterproof, and I tend to watercolor quite a few of most of my sketches. Actually, I tend to watercolor now, so I don't really use ballpoint pens all that much, but the rest of these I use pretty frequently. So yeah, so that's it. Those are all the different pen types. Well, not all of them. They're the ones that I mainly use. There are definitely more pen types, but those are the ones that I generally use. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what kind of pens you use the most. Let me know if any of these are new to you, and if you're gonna start using them, let me know how they work out for you. But yeah, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.